technology today is breaking down hierarchies. It is, and then you combine that with the remote work. We're seeing organizational structures disintegrate and flatten throughout business in general. I think that's going to continue. I think the individual now, with the access to all this technology, can be just as powerful as a department. So it's just going to change everything.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Engatica Interview Series. I'm your host Anshdeep Kaur, and we're really glad to have Greg Walters, President and founders at Greg Walters Inc.Analog and Enthusiast and Digital Strategist on the show. Welcome, Greg.
Great, thank you very much for having me.
Well, let's get started and let me just brief you a bit about Engatica Interview Series before we move ahead. So, it is a powerhouse of insights from industry experts and influencers from around the world. A platform that provides latest news on AI, automation, and technologies that will help you grow your business. Come be a part of a community, learn, share, and grow with us. So, Greg, before we move with the questions, let me just start with the first question. Okay, yeah. How has the landscape of computerized accounting systems evolved since the late 1980s? And what are some key advancements that have revolutionized this field?
Well, there are quite a few actually. I think initially in the 80s, companies were moving from manual accounting systems to automated accounting systems. Actually, we called it computerized accounting systems, and it was tied along with the move from big iron mainframes and minis to the PCs, the network PCs, and things like that. And pricing came down on these applications that SMB and even medium-sized businesses could afford to get into automated accounting systems on the computerized accounting. So that was one of the big changes, just moving from manual to automated. Over the decades, consolidation of the industry is probably the biggest. We went from maybe a dozen or so solid applications to maybe two or three. Great Plains was a very good independent small accounting house or software house. Ultimately, that's Dynamics from Microsoft now. So the biggest change has been as these companies have been purchased and coalesced with other companies and other types of applications. And then from then on, it just moved from accounting, general ledger, inventory control to even customer service, customer relationship management. That was not a thing, but now it is, and that's all integrated through those types of systems. So yeah, I mean, we've seen a heck of a lot of changes on the technology and the applications. Now there's very few businesses that do not have a computerized accounting system. I would imagine there's hardly any at all nowadays. Yeah, big changes there. And that in turn changed workflow, right?
Mhm.
Instead of having so many people or somebody open up envelopes and pull out checks and things like that, now it's all electronic, but there's still an accounts receivable and accounts payable function in the accounting system. It's just the manual processes outside and inside of those workflows are now they're gone and different. So yeah, that's a really big difference.
So, can you elaborate on the concept of digital transformation and its significance in today's business world? And how have you witnessed the businesses adapt to this transformation over the years?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you what, it's the transformation is still ongoing. And to think about it, it's been going on since the beginning of business, right? I mean, digitalization was, like I said earlier, it was all encapsulated on mainframes and computerizing power that large organizations would be in a position to utilize versus the smaller ones. But as digital transformation or as technology evolved and it became more available to, say, the mass market, transition was just a natural step in the evolution. Digital transformation is something that we've called it just moving off of analog or manual systems and applying it and using it on computer systems. Is probably the simplest way to put it. But the digital transformation has gone from robots out back on the manufacturing shop floor to accounting systems in the back office to customer relationship management in the sales force to digital communications, the convergence of the internet, entertainment, news, and onward and upward to social media, how that has transformed what ended up happening is it came out as it was impacting businesses. Even back in the days with CompuServe and American Online, started to transform the general populace digitally. So we've seen that continue. What I would say in the last 3, 4, maybe even the last 3 to 5 years is the acceleration of the transformation process. Now it's not, people don't consider it digital transformation. It's just the way it is. Everything's digital now. So we're just using digital in our everyday lives, everything from what we do right now, online and video communications to smart refrigerators and ovens and appliances and things like that. So the transformation is ongoing. It's continuous. To me, it's just the use of digital tools to help life go by, and that brings in swings in AI in the last 2 or 3 years. It really caught on by the masses. So, yeah.
Right. So digital transformation is really like the daily life now.
Yeah, it is. It's it's not digital transformation. It's just transformation, right?
Yeah,
And it's like
that's a fair point.
one day it won't be artificial intelligence; it'll just be intelligence, stuff like that.
Right.
Which
I'm
is
sure.
interesting. Yeah.
That's interesting. So managed IT services and print practices have also become increasingly popular in the recent years, right? So could you explain how these services work and their benefits to the business?
Sure. Well, along with the digital transformation and the the more available technology to just about everyone, right? It isn't. It's sort of like when the internet came out and people said, "Well, we're going to stop printing now because we don't have to. We can all do everything electronic." Well, what ended up happening in the very beginning was there was just much more printing and copying going on. Excuse me, as we used digital equipment and digital processing, but we still output to analog because we were very comfortable with paper documents. The same with as companies start to use more of these technological tools, software packages, hardware. Even smaller companies, 25 to 50 to 150 people, these companies would take advantage of these tools, but you still needed to have someone on staff to help everything from end users log in, creating new end users. What happened if you had a network and it went down? Did you have your specialist there? Did someone at the office know how to handle that? And as that evolved, companies became more prominent. Says, listen, we will take over those services for you. We'll manage your. It started off very simply enough. When something breaks, call us and we'll come out and fix it. And it evolved into, well, you've got all these digital assets. Let's help you manage your existing assets, which would be anything from mice to monitors, PCs, servers. Then it evolved into cloud applications, security, hardware. And then as all that evolved, the companies that were providing quote unquote IT services were able to provide that to smaller businesses at, say, a monthly fee. And then evolve that relationship into, well, not only will we help you manage your existing technology, but that also means managing in terms of retiring your technology, acquiring new technology, evolving and changing, say, from one type of topology to another, the whole move from file servers to cloud. So the SMB is very good at, say, selling produce, but they don't have the expertise to help with digital transformation. They would hire another company to handle these IT services. So the impact there is huge. It's huge to offload that labor-intensive process and just pay someone else to do that for you. It's changed so quickly. There's very few companies that have people on staff who can adapt and help, and then recognize certain technological advancements that would help a business, right? And again, we're seeing that with our artificial intelligence. It's out there. It has mass appeal, but okay, do we use it? How do we use it? Should we use it? All those questions. But if you're with a managed IT service provider, they should have the insight to help guide that customer decision along to the next step. So yeah, it's been very, very impactful from the consumer side to even providers. I mean, now there's IT supplier or service providers all over the world, from small 5-man shops to big, Accenture, Price Waterhouse, companies like that. So it's pretty intense.
Right. So, your book, Death of Copier, it explores the future of the hard copy industry. And how do you foresee the future of printing industry, and what factors do you believe will contribute to the evolution?
Well, that's a great question. And in my niche, the office technology realm, that's the big question. It's been the big question though for almost 30, 40 years. I mean, in the 70s, the paperless office was going to hit. It really never took place. Um, but if we look at pre-COVID numbers, over the last 5 to 8 years, actual print volume has been decreasing. It's been slowly decreasing, but it has been going down. Now, 3 to 5% a year over time should impact the entire industry, and indeed it has. We've seen some great consolidation. Again, larger copier companies, just put it that way, down to the tactics. They all began to meld together. We had some venture capitalists come into the industry. And this is all pre-COVID. Um, we did see a fall in business in terms of print output, but what a lot of our providers did is shift from print policy to what we just talked about, managed IT. So they made a pivot point from, hey, we're going to just manage your copiers and your output devices to your output devices, your computers, your software, your cloud access, your security, and spun that and it made that pivot, and that went fairly well. Now, COVID, the fear of COVID just changed everything. Pretty much it accelerated that. As people didn't go into the office, they didn't use the copy machines, they didn't print as much. Um, but there are some, at this time, there are numbers that say we've gotten close to the same volume levels as we were at pre-COVID. So although that was declining and it is still declining, there's a lot of different theories as to what that means. I think in for the future, we're still going to see a decline. I think it'll be a little bit more accelerated, but we will be there. There should be more consolidation within our industry. We just have too many copier manufacturers right now, and that's being very apparent. And we'll see probably something along those lines in the next 12 to 24 months. But the transformation will continue, and people will move away from print. And it's I hate to say this, but it is a generational issue. As more and more people come into the work environment that are unfamiliar with how a printer works, which because they've never had to use one, you'll see that more and more prevalent in the work environment as that generation starts to filter into the business realm. People just aren't going to want to print because they never had to print in the first place. The internet generation and things like that. So it's a big deal for us, the pivot into IT services, because the IT is on the same glide path. There will be a day when you won't need IT providers and service providers because a company has switched all their assets into the cloud. The machines and everything really don't need on-site service as much as they did before. That's true today. So even that realm is going to deserve another pivot into something else. And anyone who knows that has a better crystal ball than me. That's for sure.
Right. So, what are the key technological trends or developments that businesses should be prepared for in the next decade? And also, how can organizations stay ahead of the curve in the ever evolving technological landscape?
Um, as far as within the next little look over the horizon, obviously, I mentioned it a couple times already, the proliferation of artificial intelligence. Now, we're going to see it in ways that are just normal, as I alluded to earlier. It's already in the cars, your automobiles, your blenders, your refrigerators, your HVAC, all the normal touch points of everyday life are going to be impacted in some way, shape, or form by a quote artificial intelligence agent application, whatever you want to call it. And the micro side. On the macro, it is huge. This is, I've heard people compare it to the next industrial revolution, right? But when we look at it seriously, it is on the scale of the wheel. It will change everything, and it is changing everything. And I think if we look at just the timeline, I think it was the latest iteration was released. I think the end of November, and it's what May going into June. 6 7 months. Number of users has just continued to grow. Applications that use the current Chat GPT are blown up left and right. The big guys are in at Google, Microsoft, and that's today. I mean, it's going to change. So I think the biggest thing that we should consider is application of AI. Now, to allude back to your next question, how does a company stay ahead of the curve? It's nearly impossible. All right, unless you are an AI firm, unless you are a software house. If you are a manufacturer, a wholesale distribution, retail, food service, you've got 98% of your business is satisfying your customer. It's going to be hard for you to worry about what the latest version of ChatGPT is and what it brings to the market, or what it brings to the search. You're not really going to care that much that you can write a sonnet about, I don't know, quantum mechanics. That's cute and everything, but it doesn't sell more sandwiches, or it doesn't more widgets or whatever. So it's going to take someone in the right now, somebody in the organization to actually try and stay above the waterline when it comes to artificial intelligence, and as it grows and expands and transforms in the next 12 to 24 months. And this is a guess, because AI just changed everything. You combine that with the fear of COVID. You combine that with the office space right now, commercial real estate. People aren't going back to the office, and you combine the fact that, and I've heard this quote, in most cases, AI allows 2 people to do the work of 20. All right, especially in startups and things like that, software companies. So we're seeing a complete and total shift in how work gets done. And in my opinion, it's being decentralized, and you can have smaller firms, smaller teams impact huge industries where you might have had 3 or 4 or maybe 25,000 employees involved in a technology company. You probably aren't going to need that many anymore, and your deliverables are going to be that much better. So, but keeping ahead of that right now, it's what we call over here the wild, wild west. There really are no rules. There are very few use cases, but they're out there. And unfortunately, or good or bad, this target moves every 90 days. That's an interesting point that's going on right now. You don't have 12 months to study a project and 24 months to put something together and implement. We're talking days and weeks between I've got an idea and it's in the market. It's incredible. So that's a tough one to answer right now.
That's an interesting number, though. So, are there any other soundbites you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I think that, in general, I mean, I'm a technocrat. I think what we're going to see is another great circle. As technology today is breaking down hierarchies, it is, and then you combine that with the remote work. We're seeing organizational structures disintegrate and flatten throughout business in general. I think that's going to continue. I think the individual now, with the access to all this technology, could be just as powerful as a department. So it's just going to change everything. And the way I look at it, back to your last question, is the best way to really keep an eye on it is to see how the general public, the consumer base at a B2C level, utilizes technology. What works with them? The iPhone was designed for people, wasn't designed for business, but it changed business, right? So that might be the best way to look at it. And I remember, when we had the Nextel, we had all sorts of different phones. The Droids came out. There was a plethora of personal technology devices available. And at that point, you couldn't really predict it. You just had to watch what happened. So that's probably the best way to keep your finger on the pulse. But now it's a weekly and daily look, because seriously, if you don't keep your eye on it for 2 weeks and you look back right now, things have changed so much. So I think that's probably my my last message would be, yeah, this is a crazy time. It's a great time, though. This is a really good time to be around. We'll look back on this as another historical pivot point that we were lucky enough to be a part of. I think that's pretty neat.
That's true. Well, thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights with us. And for more content, subscribe to Engati and tap the bell icon to access to exclusive content from thought leaders from around the globe. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you with the new expert soon.